Hello everybody and welcome back to another math learning video. Today I brought you guys this problem here where we are giving these two expressions a times b plus c is equal to 2020 and a plus b times c is equal to 2021, and what we need to do is we need to solve for the variables a, b, and c, right? With keeping in mind that these values a, b, and c are integers, okay? So let's go ahead and find what these variables stand for. So a times b plus c and a plus b times c. So we have three variables that we need to solve for. However, we're only given two equations. So what I'm going to do, so here we have that the sum, or not the sum necessarily, but the total answer of these three terms combined and multiply a times b and add c, you get 2020. And here we get a plus b times c is 2021. And as we all know, 2020 and 2021 are really close to each other. So what we can do is we can subtract the top equation, or we can subtract this equation by this equation. We can subtract to combine the equations together. So this equation, a plus b times c equals 2021, I'm going to subtract it by a times b plus c is equal to 2020. Okay? So now our right side, 2021 minus 2020, is equal to simply 1, right? And now for our right side, we just need to subtract the terms by one another. So I'm just going to write it out as, for now, I'm going to write it out as a plus b. B times c we can write as bc, right? It's the same thing. And then minus, make sure to put parentheses here, a times b, which is just ab, plus c, okay? And now if we rewrite this by distributing the negative, this will give us that a plus bc minus ab, we distribute the negative to both the terms here, minus c is equal to 1, okay? So now we got this equation here where every variable shows up twice, and what we can do is we can actually do some factoring here. So what I'm going to factor out is I see that these two terms here, they both have an a. So let me actually highlight them or underline them with a different color. So this term and this term here have an a, so we can factor out an a from both of these terms, which will give us a minus a times b, which factored out would be, if we take out the a, this becomes 1 minus b, right? And then this leaves us with the b times c minus c. So here there also is a common term, and that term is c, right? So there's a c in both of these terms. So if we have a bc minus c, both of these terms have a c, so it means we can factor out a c. If we can factor out the c, that leaves us with b minus 1, right? Because if we factor out the c, we take out the c here, leaves us with b, take out the c divided by c is 1. So now we see that the inside the parentheses, normally if they are the same, we can merge them together, right? And we can factor them out, which basically means merge them together, right? But we see that here's a 1 minus b, here's a b minus 1. So they are not the exact same, however, they do look similar. So what can we do to make these the same so we can factor them out? To make them the same, we can factor out a negative 1 from here. So what would that look like? So that would look like this is still say the same, a minus 1b. And if we factor out a negative 1 for here, this becomes, we multiply the c by negative 1, so it'll be negative minus c, and then everything reverts to negative. So this b becomes negative b, and this negative 1 becomes 1. So this turns into 1 minus b. And now we have these two terms are the same. So now since we have 1 minus b in both of these terms, we can factor it out. So if we factor out 1 minus b, That means we cancel out from here and here, so that leaves us with a minus c, right? Which we can write together in the parentheses. And remember, this is all still equal to 1, okay? I forgot to write that, but this is all equal to 1. Remember, because we did 2021 minus 2020. So now we got the left side factored. So now we have to keep in mind that a, b, and c are integers, right? And these two values together, these two values multiplied by one another need to equal 1, and they need to be whole numbers. So what possibilities are they? So there are two possibilities, right? So either both of these are equal, both of these terms are equal to 1, 1 and 1, or negative 1 and negative 1, right? So we're going to have two answers here, and we need to solve for both of them. So let's solve first for the two terms. So these two parentheses have to both equal 1 to make this true, okay? So our left parenthesis and right parenthesis be 1. So for our left parentheses, we have 1 minus b. So we already have 1 here. So b would have to be 0, right? For the left side to be 1. So since b is 0, we can go up and look to the original equations and plug in 0 for b to see what the other variables will be. So if b is equal to 0, a times 0 is 0, right? So 0 plus c is 2020, so that means that c has to be equal to 2020, right? And now if we plug in b is 0 for the second equation, we get that 0 times c is 0, right? It doesn't matter what c is because it's always 0. So a plus 0 is 2021, so that means that a is equal to 2021. Okay, so now we have our three set of variables, but remember, there are two different answers here since we have not checked for -1 and -1 yet. So we got our first set of answers when we make both of these terms into 1. So now all we need to do is we need to make both of these terms into -1. So 1 minus b needs to equal -1. So what would be b? In this case, b would be 2, right? Because 1 minus 2 is equal to -1. And now we need to solve for a and c. So we need to find a value for a or c. So I'll just plug in 2 for b in the first equation. So that gives us that a times 2, so 2a plus c is equal to 2020. So now we have two variables here that we need to solve for. However, we only have one equation, so we need to add a second equation into here. And the second equation that we can add this equation here, the bottom one. However, I think it'd be faster if we add also. Remember, we could have also used it in the first part, but we can plug in the a minus c since we know that this also has to equal to -1, right? So I'm going to put in that a minus c has to equal -1. So now I got these two equations in order to solve for the variables. So what we can do is that we see that we have a positive c here and a negative c here. So if we add these two equations together, they would cancel each other out, right? So plus c and minus c, let's add these two equations together. So 2a plus a is equal to 3a, and then c plus c minus c is equal, cancel each other out, so we get that 3a is equal to 2020 minus 1, so that's 2019. So now, to solve for a, we need to divide by 3, right? So, and then just do 2019 divided by 3, which, let's go ahead and use long division to solve. So 2019 divided by 3, so 3 goes into 20 6 times, so subtract 18, we get 2, drag the 1 down, 3 times 21 is equal to, no, not 3 times 21, excuse me, 3 times 7 is equal to 21, then we drag down the 9, 3 times 3 is equal to 9, and then we get that 2019 divided by 3 is equal to 673. So this means that our a value is 673. And if we look at this equation here, a minus c has to equal to -1. So 673 minus what is equal to -1. Well, the number has to be 1 more than 673, so minus 674 is equal to -1. So that means that our C value is 674. Okay, so now we found the two answer possibilities, the two combinations of A, B, and C to make these two equations true. So that is how we did it. Of course, there are multiple ways you can go about solving these problems. My way is not the only way. And yes, that is it for today. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and see you guys next time. Bye.